In today's video, is there such a thing as too much volume? Volume, volume, volume. Is the key to muscle growth? I don't know, you tell me. But I wanted to talk about too much volume and is it a thing? And more recently, a lot of people talk about the total amount of volume is the end all, be all for muscle growth. So the more volume you do, potentially the greater amount of muscle you're gonna gain. Well, I'm here to tell you that all the volume in the world is not necessarily the answer to your muscle gaining questions. I'll explain why next. It's because when you do all the volume in the world, your body can only handle so much at a given time. Your muscles can only handle so much stress before they start to break down and are in a state of fatigue. So unfortunately, people nowadays have the attitude that they are just going to completely run themselves into the ground in a given training session because they are trying to do as much volume as they can, or they're trying to do as much volume as they can in the course of a given week. And while volume is great, there does reach a point of an upper limit where you can only handle so much. Now, I do want to say this before I get into a little bit more, is that I think a lot of people actually don't do enough volume. From personal experience, what I've seen with my clients is when I put them on a training program, maybe something similar to what I would personally run, dialed back a little bit, they think initially by looking at it on paper that, oh man, that is a lot of volume. But when they actually get into it, when they start doing the program, they realize that they could handle a lot more than what they were doing. They don't just need to do 3 sets of 10. They could do a lot more. They don't need to do 4 sets of 10. They can handle a lot more volume. They can do sets of 15 to 20 or 25. They could physically handle it. But it's when people take that attitude and they take it to 3 levels higher than that, where they take their volume and they ramp it up for every single session. And while it can be good every now and then, for instance, like when I do high rep deads and I try to do an AMRAP set, I'm not doing that every single training session. What I'm doing is I'm hitting my recommended volume the vast majority of the time, and then every now and then when I'm feeling good, when I'm having a party with my friends and we're having a little deadlift competition, I'll pull an AMRAP set. Does that set wreck me? Absolutely, it wrecks me, but it doesn't necessarily trash me for the remainder of my week. It fatigues me in that set, but that's about it. Unfortunately, when people add in too much volume over time, one, you can't recover from that. So if you're training a fatigued muscle, you have the higher potential for injury. And that's where the problem occurs. It's when you're trying to do 405 every single time you're deadlifting, when you're trying to bench 315 every single time you're benching, when you're trying to squat 315 for reps every single time you're squatting. That's where the rubber meets the road and your body physically can't repair from that. So is there such a thing as too much volume? Is there such a thing as overtraining? I would say yes. The vast majority of people are probably not doing that, but those who try to take their workouts to the extreme and take everything to failure are setting themselves up for failure. And that's not necessarily what bodybuilding is all about, and especially as a natural athlete, we know that it takes a while for us to recover, right? It takes 36 to 48 hours, sometimes even maybe 72 hours, depending on the intensity of your training and how your personal recovery is, if we're in a caloric surplus, if we're in a deficit. There's a lot of contributing factors going into how much volume we can handle at a given time. So consider that when you're planning out your workout and think to yourself, you know, am I doing enough? You know, are my workouts too easy? Can I handle more? Or if you're on the opposite end of the spectrum and you're constantly fatigued, if you're constantly run down, if you're plagued with injuries, think in the back of your head, you know, maybe I am trying to do a little bit too much. And if I take even a half or one step back, maybe that'll be more beneficial for long-term progress. Because at the end of the day, in order to make progress, you have to be injury-free. And if you're overtraining and getting injured, you're forced to take time off. So it's a very gray area of how much is too little, how much is too much. And you do have to kind of feel that out over time. Like I said earlier, I think the vast majority of people are undertraining. You know, they don't give themselves enough stimulus in order to really try to make the progress that they want. And I think a very select few people are in fact overtraining and overreaching far too often. Now there are times to overreach, like I said, you know, every now and then, but if you're constantly plagued by injuries, if you're constantly run down, if it hinders your performance, that is probably too much volume and you should try to decrease it ever so slightly. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you overtraining? Are you undertraining? How much volume are you doing in a particular session? Is it 3 sets of 10 or are you going all over the place with your rep ranges, and how close to failure are you going? So as always guys, keep dominating every aspect and I'll see you very soon.